Let us continue with your government exam preparation series. This is SS1 Topic 2. We are discussing democracy and other forms of government. This topic appears in your exams every single year. By the end of this lesson, you will understand what democracy means, the features and types of democracy, other forms of government like communism, socialism, capitalism, fascism, and oligarchy, and how to answer exam questions. Take your notes. Let us go. First, what is democracy? Democracy comes from two Greek words. Demos means people, kratos means power or rule. So democracy means rule by the people. In a democracy, the people have the ultimate authority. They choose their leaders. They hold their leaders accountable. They can change their leaders if they are not satisfied. Democracy is based on the idea that every person has equal worth and should have an equal say in how they are governed. The most famous definition of democracy comes from Abraham Lincoln. He said democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Government of the people means the government is drawn from the people. Government by the people means the people participate in governing. Government for the people means the government works for the benefit of all citizens, not just a few. Now let me explain the features of democracy. These are the characteristics that make a government democratic. The first feature is popular sovereignty. This means that the people are the source of all political power. The government gets its authority from the consent of the governed. Elections are held regularly. The people choose who will represent them. The second feature is majority rule with minority rights. In a democracy, decisions are made by majority vote. The side with more than half the votes wins. But the majority cannot do whatever it wants. The rights of the minority must be protected. The Constitution guarantees certain rights that cannot be taken away by a majority vote. Freedom of speech applies to everyone, even to people who disagree with the majority. The third feature is political equality. Every citizen has one vote. Every vote counts the same. The vote of a poor person is worth the same as the vote of a rich person. The vote of a young person is worth the same as the vote of an old person. This is political equality. The fourth feature is periodic elections. Elections must be held at regular intervals. Voters must have a choice between different candidates and parties. The elections must be free and fair. There should be no cheating, no intimidation, and no violence. The results of the elections must be respected by everyone. The fifth feature is the rule of law. This means that no one is above the law. Everyone, including the president, must obey the law. The law applies equally to all citizens. There is no special treatment for the rich or powerful. The sixth feature is an independent judiciary. The courts must be free from control by the government. Judges must be able to make decisions based on the law, not based on who is in power. An independent judiciary is essential for protecting the rights of citizens. The seventh feature is freedom of the press. The media must be free to report on the government without fear. Citizens need accurate information to make good decisions at the ballot box. When the press is free, the government cannot hide its mistakes. The eighth feature is political parties. In a democracy, citizens can form political parties to express their views. Parties compete for votes. The party that wins the most votes forms the government. The parties that lose become the opposition. The opposition monitors the government and holds it accountable. The ninth feature is accountability. Elected officials must answer to the people. They must explain their decisions. They must justify how they spend public money. If they do a bad job, the people can remove them. Now let me explain the types of democracy. There are two main types. Direct democracy is when all citizens vote directly on every issue. This works only in small communities. In ancient Athens, all male citizens gathered in an assembly to make decisions. They voted on laws, taxes, and even whether to go to war. But direct democracy is not practical for large countries with millions of people. It would take too much time. Most citizens do not have the time or knowledge to vote on every issue. Representative democracy is when citizens elect representatives to make decisions on their behalf. The representatives meet in a parliament or congress. They debate the issues, they pass laws, they make budgets. If the people do not like what their representatives are doing, they can vote them out at the next election. Representative democracy is the most common form of democracy in the world today. Nigeria, the United States, the United Kingdom, and most other democracies use representative democracy. Now let me explain the merits and demerits of democracy. The merits, or advantages, of democracy include the protection of individual rights, the accountability of leaders, the peaceful transfer of power, the participation of citizens, and the stability that comes from legitimacy. Democracy protects freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religion. Leaders know that if they do not perform well, they will be voted out. When elections are over, the loser accepts defeat. The winner takes office. No one needs to fight or die. Citizens are invited to vote, to run for office, and to express their opinions. This makes people feel invested in their country. Because democracy is based on consent, it is more stable than dictatorships. The demerits or disadvantages of democracy include the fact that it is slow and expensive. Decisions take time because many people must be consulted. Elections are expensive to run. Campaigns cost a lot of money. Ordinary citizens may not be well informed enough to make good decisions. They may be swayed by propaganda or emotion. The majority can sometimes oppress the minority. This is called the tyranny of the majority. Politicians may tell people what they want to hear rather than what they need to hear. This is called populism. Despite these disadvantages, most people believe democracy is the best form of government. Now let me explain other forms of government. The first is communism. Communism is a political and economic system where all property is owned by the community. There is no private property. The means of production, like factories and farms, are owned by the state. The goal of communism is a classless society where everyone is equal. The main theorist of communism was Karl Marx. In theory, communism is supposed to lead to abundance and freedom. In practice, communist countries like the Soviet Union and China became dictatorships. The state controlled everything. Dissent was not allowed. Features of communism include state ownership of property, one-party rule, central planning of the economy, and the abolition of social classes. The second is socialism. Socialism is a political and economic system where the state owns and controls the major industries. But unlike communism, socialism allows some private ownership. The goal of socialism is to reduce inequality and provide for the basic needs of all citizens. Socialism supports free healthcare, free education, and social security. Examples of socialist countries include the Nordic countries like Sweden and Norway. They have a mix of capitalism and socialism. Features of socialism include state ownership of key industries, social welfare programs, progressive taxation, and regulation of the economy. The third is capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system where private individuals own the means of production. The goal is to make profit. The market determines prices. Competition is encouraged. Government intervention is minimal. Examples of capitalist countries include the United States and the United Kingdom. Features of capitalism include private property, free markets, profit motive, competition, and limited government. The advantages of capitalism are efficiency, innovation, and economic growth. The disadvantages are inequality, exploitation, and economic cycles of boom and bust. The fourth is fascism. Fascism is a political system where a dictator has complete power. The state is more important than the individual. There is no democracy. Opposition is crushed. Fascism glorifies the nation, race, and leader. The main examples of fascism were Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler and Italy under Benito Mussolini. Features of fascism include one-party rule, a dictator, secret police, censorship, propaganda, and militarism. Fascism is extremely dangerous and has been rejected by most of the world. The fifth is oligarchy. Oligarchy is a form of government where a small group of people holds power. This small group may be based on wealth, family, military power, or social status. The many are ruled by the few. An oligarchy is not democratic. The people do not have a say. Examples include ancient Sparta and some modern countries where a few wealthy families control the government. Features of oligarchy include rule by a small group, lack of political competition, and the interests of the few placed above the interests of the many. The sixth is monarchy. Monarchy is a form of government where a king or queen is the head of state. There are two types. Absolute monarchy is where the monarch has complete power. The monarch makes laws, judges cases, and commands the army. There is no constitution to limit the monarch's power. Saudi Arabia is an example of an absolute monarchy. Constitutional monarchy is where the monarch is only a ceremonial head of state. The real power is held by an elected parliament. The monarch reigns but does not rule. The United Kingdom is an example of a constitutional monarchy. The king is the head of state, but the prime minister runs the government. The seventh is aristocracy. Aristocracy is a form of government where the best citizens rule. In theory, aristocrats are the most qualified, educated, and virtuous. In practice, aristocracy often means rule by the wealthy nobility. Power is inherited. The common people have no say. Features of aristocracy include hereditary rule, privilege based on birth, and a small ruling class. Now let me compare democracy with other forms of government. Democracy is ruled by the people. Communism is ruled by the party. Socialism is ruled by the state with some private ownership. Capitalism is ruled by the market. Fascism is ruled by a dictator. Oligarchy is ruled by a few. Monarchy is ruled by a king or queen. Aristocracy is ruled by the nobility. Democracy is the only system where the people have the ultimate authority. In all the others, power is held by a small group or a single leader. Democracy is based on consent. The others are based on force, tradition, or wealth. A common exam question asks you to define democracy and list its features. Here is a sample answer. Democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Its features include popular sovereignty, majority rule with minority rights, political equality, periodic elections, rule of law, independent judiciary, freedom of the press, political parties, and accountability. These features ensure that the people have control over their government and that their rights are protected. Another exam question asks you to distinguish between direct democracy and representative democracy. Here is your answer. Direct democracy is when all citizens vote directly on every issue. It works only in small communities. Representative democracy is when citizens elect representatives to make decisions on their behalf. It works in large countries. Most modern democracies, including Nigeria, use representative democracy. Direct democracy is impractical for millions of people. Representative democracy allows for specialization and efficiency. Another exam question asks you to explain the merits and demerits of democracy. Here is your answer. The merits of democracy include protection of rights, accountability of leaders, peaceful transfer of power, citizen participation, and stability. The demerits include slow decision-making, high costs, uninformed voters, potential for majority tyranny, and populism. Despite its disadvantages, democracy is widely considered the best form of government because it respects human dignity and freedom. Another exam question asks you to identify other forms of government. Here is your answer. Other forms of government include communism, where the state owns everything. Socialism, where the state owns key industries. Capitalism, where private individuals own the means of production. Fascism, where a dictator has complete power. Oligarchy, where a small group rules. Monarchy, where a king or queen rules. Aristocracy, where the nobility rules. Each system has different principles and practices. Democracy is the most common form today. Here is what you need to take away. Democracy means rule by the people. Its features include popular sovereignty, elections, rule of law, and rights. The two types are direct and representative democracy. The merits of democracy include accountability and stability. The demerits include slowness and cost. Other forms of government include communism, socialism, capitalism, fascism, oligarchy, monarchy, and aristocracy. Understanding democracy and its alternatives is essential for your exam. Practice these definitions. When you have them down, move to topic 3.